requested to kindly settle down and put your phone on the silent mode. And we'll be beginning the session in another 2 or 3 minutes. Thank you. The book which we'll be discussing for another 40 minutes, it is Our World, a Symphony of Drabbles by the Three Generations. It's a wonderful collection of 86 short stories, which raises some very pertinent questions, some complex issues of our life. So I hope the session is going to be really very interactive and also enlightening. Do we have Ruchi Ranjan, Ishika Ranjan with us? Okay. So I would like to request Ms. Ruchi Ranjan and Ishika Ranjan, who are the main speakers for this session, to please kindly come up on the stage so that we may begin as early as possible. I would also like to request the chair for this session, none other than but the Venu Agrahari Dhingra, to kindly come on the stage. She is going to chair this session.
Ishika, you sit in the center.
All right, my sincere apologies. Dr. Ruchi Ranjan and Dr. Ishika Ranjan, isn't it? All right, all right. So very warm good afternoon, everybody present here. They say that while all microfiction and non-fiction focuses on the brevity, an author is really challenged by the dribble. We all know that dribble is a short story of exactly of 100 words. Sometimes it's easy to mock, but very hard to do. In fact, I would like to mention one of the very popular quote by Abraham Lincoln. So he said, "If I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter." So that shows that challenge which all our authors, they have taken and produced this wonderful book to all of us. So big round of applause for the author, Dr. Ruchi Ranjan and Miss Ishika Ranjan. There is another author, the Bishan Sahai. In fact, all the three, they have contributed in this book. So without any further delay, I would like to introduce the eminent panel for today's session. So first of all, the main speaker, Dr. Ruchika Ranjan. Dr. Ruchika Ranjan holds a doctorate in child psychology from the University of Delhi, and he's a trained counselor also. She has taught psychology in Delhi University and in the Government Degree College, Hyderabad. She has published numerous research papers in reputed journals. At present, she works with marginalized children in the Select School of Hyderabad. A big round of applause for Dr. Ruchi Ranjan. We welcome you, ma'am. The another speaker for today's session is Ms. Ishika Ranjan. Ishika Ranjan is a student of grade 11 in Hyderabad. Her favorite subjects at school include English literature and mathematics. An avid reader, she has a penchant for writing. Her creativity is channelized through photography, experimenting with new recipes, sketching, and music. A big round of applause for Ms. Ishika Ranjan. We really welcome you, ma'am. And now, the discussant for today's session, Ms. Venu Agrahari Dhingra. She is a lawyer by education, an activist by passion, and a writer by choice, Venu Agrahari. He has also written a book, Power Women, India's Political Winners. This book brings alive the tales of 16 women in the Indian politics, which covers the former women prime ministers, Speaker of Lok Sabha, chief ministers of various Indian states, union ministers, MPs, and so on and so forth. And I would like to mention one very important thing which is common between this book of Venu Agrahari and the book which we are going to read today, that both of the books have been praised by Dr. Shashi Tharoor. We all know he's a prolific writer. So now I would like to request the discussant, the moderator for today's session, Ms. Venu Agrahari Dhingra, to kindly begin this session. Thank you.
Hello everyone here. I am Venu Agrahari Dhingra, and it's my privilege to be sitting with Dr. Ruchi Ranjan and Ishika Ranjan. This book is about Drabbles, Our World, a Symphony of Drabbles by 3 generations. This book is very unique in many ways. First of all, it has been co-authored by 3 generations, a mother, daughter, and a grandfather. It's a rare combination, और इन तीनों ने इस किताब को लिखा है. The grandfather, Mr. Bishan Sahai, who was 93 in 2020 when the book was published. So now he is 95, and for obvious reasons, I'm sure, for obvious reasons, he couldn't travel. We have the mother, Dr. Ruchi Ranjan, and a daughter, Ishika Ranjan. I will just correct, she is now first year undergraduate at Ashoka University. So that's my second common factor with her. I am also a student at Ashoka University right now, but my program is online. So that is, the second is, this book is the first of its kind in India, Drabble writing. What I have understood of Drabble writing is that this book has to, the one story has to finish in 100 words, not a word less, not a word more. So I'm sure abhi hum is pe aayenge how difficult it was to write this. This book has praised by 2 literary gods of India, Mr. Ruskin Bond and Dr. Shashi Tharoor. They are literary gods of India, and that is what our common factor is, and a cricket god, Sachin Tendulkar. It has a foreword by Harinder Sikka ji, and not to miss, this book is a national bestseller. This book is a national bestseller. It's one of its kind in India, Drabble writing. This book is dedicated to Mr. Ruskin Bond. So this has 86 stories. Why? Because when this book was published, Mr. Ruskin Bond was 86. Now there's a Hindi version which has a 87 Drabbles. Why? Because now Mr. Ruskin Bond is 87. So these are the common factors. Drabbling is a new form of writing in India, which has been brought to us by 3 co-authors, Mr. Bishan Sahai, Dr. Ruchi Ranjan, and Ishika Ranjan. When I picked up, I was asked to moderate this show, and I picked up this book. Believe me, in one go, I finished 25 stories in one go. Why? Because you finish reading one story in 1 minute, maximum 2. So whenever you have to go through a light reading or a great, a decent reading, jisko kaha jaye heavy reading nahi karni hai, you must pick up this book. Drabble has come for the first time in India by Dr. Ruchi Ranjan, Ishika, and her grandfather. I will start by asking Ishika first. I think, let me just guess, is Ishika the youngest author in this festival? I am sure. Ishika is 18 right now, and she started writing at the age of 7. So that is a brilliant feat to this girl. At the age of 7, and she's still writing, and she's a co-author now of this book. So Ishika, let me start by you. How did you start at the age of 7? What inspired you to writing?
So thank you, Venu ma'am, for the lovely introduction. As you rightly said, I started writing at the age of 7. At that time, I was a student in Massachusetts in Cambridge, And I've,
Thoda pass karo. Little closer. Yeah.
so I started writing in Massachusetts and Cambridge in the third grade itself.
Ah.
So at that time in Massachusetts, we had a creative writing course where they used to encourage us to write more, to use our imagination. So the first story I wrote, that's in this book too. It's called How the Birds Got Their Colors. I think I could read it out.
Yeah, please, please. It would be lovely if you read out your chapters. It's chapter 8? Yes, that's my favorite by Ishika also.
So this story is called How the Birds Got Their Colors. A snake went for a stroll in the forests of East Africa. Meandering deeper and deeper, he saw strange and colorful things. What are these? He asked a mole. Flowers, came the reply. How beautiful, said the snake, and gobbled them all up. Why did you devour all the flowers? Complained the colorless birds. Because they looked nice. But the forest no longer looks nice. The snake considered for a moment and then shed its skin, unveiling different shades. Each bird took a color. Some preferred to remain black. Was this how the birds got their colors? I wondered. So this story is inspired by Rudyard Kipling's Just So stories. And this is the first one I written. Obviously, at that time, it was much longer. Now it's been edited to suit the 100-word format.
That's brilliant. I would come back to you, of course, but I will go to Ruchi. Ruchi, can you start by reading one of your stories? My favorite is, of course, chapter 22 with the illustration of Baithak of the Myanas. But आपका जो भी favorite है वो आप पढ़िए. And then I would, my connecting question to you is, what made you write Drabbles and how easy or difficult was it for you?
Thank you, Venu, for the lovely introduction. I would be reading the story which you liked, Baithak of the Manas. And this is a story which is quite dear to me too, because at that time I was a student of Delhi University. And this is one of my experiences and maybe some of the girls of my age at that time. So I'll just read it out and then I'll tell the details. The story is titled Baithak of the Manas. The Manas called for an emergency meeting in the Delhi University campus. Muthu was in tears. I am ugly. Whenever college girls see me alone, they shoo me away. But are elated when Diku and I are together. Puzzled, the Sarpanch of the Maina clan ordered an inquiry and a reward for the one who could crack this mystery. Chunni, the youngest Maina, was tech-savvy. Surreptitiously, she pegged and opened the laptop of a student and hit search. A nursery rhyme dedicated to their clan, one for sorrow, two for joy, had been taken too seriously. The reward was hers. So, when I was a student of Delhi University, we had these manas, flocking the garden. So we used to believe that if you see one word, one mana, that it indicates sorrow, and if you see two, that means joy. So this stemmed from that, what I used to feel at that time. So it's a superstition, but then I made it into a drabble, sort of. So, and as regards your second question, how difficult or how easy it was, I would say that it was more of a challenge. Because, see, writing a long story, it's quite easy, but editing it to 100 words, and just 100, it cannot be 99, it cannot be 101. So that is indeed quite difficult and more of a challenge. Because each word has to fight for its place, even the small words like the, and, you have to use them very carefully. So it was a challenge, I would say, and my first drabble, it took me a couple of days to complete it. And then, in fact, I had given up. I said, no, it is just not possible to write a drabble. It will be meaningless, the story. My first drabble which I wrote, it is never in 100 words. So it is actually more. It was 300 first, and then when I edited it, it became 250. Further editing, it became 150. Then I just gave up. I said, no, I'm not able to do it. But as we say, there is this Zeigarnik effect. You know, if we leave a task unfinished, then we have a tendency to keep remembering that. It is you know, at the back of our mind that I have to finish that, and it's still there. So then one day I just picked it up and took my pen and a paper and I wrote it, and lo and behold, it became 100. And it was quite meaningful to see the fact Drabble is not just a story in 100 words. Like a story, it has to be meaningful. It has to have a proper beginning, a middle, and an end. So it was difficult, yeah, but now since we've got the hang of it, then it's easier.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Ruchi, continuing to this challenging task that you took of writing Drabbles, I would like to know, how did this idea come to your mind? Because once a writer, you cannot stop your pen, because I have been a writer, and sometimes, you know, understanding what to keep in your chapter, what not to, but keeping that precisely to 100 words. What brought you to this idea of writing Drabbles and not your book is also, it's called a proper book, it's a national bestseller. So what brought you to writing Drabbles?
Yeah. So I'll just explain in brief about my journey, our journey maybe, but my journey began in the year 2016, my journey of writing Drabbles, it began in the year 2016. So when I got introduced to this new format of Drabble writing, and I belong to Hyderabad, so in Hyderabad we are members of a book club, and in which every month we hold meetings in which some discussion takes place, and then when we came across this new format of writing, we thought of trying it out. We suggested to the other members, and everyone was bewildered that how is it possible. Then we said, no, everybody has to try. And in fact, my erudite friend Ruchi Ranjan is also here. She was also a member of the book club there. And we all wrote a drabble, but yes, most of us were not able to complete in 100 words, but we did make an effort. So the journey began in 2016. After that, I continued writing drabbles. But not from the intent of getting it published or whatever. All three of us, we have been writing, Ishika since the age of 7, I also from an earlier age, but never with the intent of having our work published. It was just our passion. And then suddenly, for Ishika was not introduced in 2016 to the format of drabble writing. She was writing long stories. In fact, when we had our book discussion, the book club meeting, so she was asked and she said no, she was happy with her long story. So what we did, we took one of her long stories and we tried to edit it. And let me tell you, that editing part, editing it to 100 words, it took us much longer than it would have taken her to write the original story. So, yeah.
I'm sure.
So that is a part of this book.
Yeah.
So then I continued writing and then I stopped in between. Then actually when Ishika was introduced in the year 2020. In 2020 when the world was surrounded with, the COVID was there and we had practically nothing to do. It was a very negativity surrounding us. So Ishika, at that time, I asked her, and at first she refused, but then when she took the pen, and she did a really good job.
So yeah, I was just coming to it. First of all, you had to think about drabble writing, and then it has been co-authored by Ishika's grandfather, you and Ishika, of course. What made you think of co-authoring this book?
Yeah.
All three of them, and is there a genre difference between all three of you in the drabble writing? Because I did notice Ishika's and yours are different, and Mr. Sahai's has little humor in it. So could you please elaborate on that?
Yeah. So the idea of including the three generations, see in today's times, we find that the younger generation does not want to converge with the parents, what to talk of the grandparents. So basically the intentions we have, all three of us were writing. So it was a good bonding. The point was to have the minds converge and bond together. And since the grandfather has also he likes to write and read, he's an avid reader. So when we talked to him, and he has some hearing problem, so we had to communicate mostly through text. And then he said he also joined in. And though he's the oldest, but when you read his Drabbles, you'll find that he's very young at heart. So in his Drabbles, I'm sure it will bring a smile on your face, and they are quite humorous kind. Yeah.
I would request one of you to read out Mr. Bishan Sai's one of the Drabbles, because he's not here, we would love to hear his Drabble.
Yeah. Yes, I'll read. One of his Drabbles has become very popular. People have liked his Drabble. Though all are good. I'll read something related to this. Sure. So I'll read. This is titled "What Hurts Most." My friend, this is basically his anecdote, his experience. So my friend Malati, a management consultant in her 30s, was returning from Missouri with two male colleagues after conducting a training program. They were waylaid by lathi-bearing hoodlums. Nikalo kya hai tumhare paas? Wallets were quietly handed over. Rings, bangles and watches were snatched. Malti sat through the ordeal, nervous and apprehensive, until one rogue came round to her side of the car and whispered, "Don't worry, Mataji. We only want money." Certainly, they were unscathed. The car was allowed to leave unhurt. Malti was livid, recounting the trauma to me. "I can't imagine that oldie could call me Mataji." So see, one of the best Drabbles is one which has a twist in the end. So most of his Drabbles are like that. You will be thinking something will emerge, and the last line will be the line.
It makes you imagine more, it makes you think more.
Think more.
After the last line.
Yeah. And suddenly there's a twist, no? There's a turn.
Right.
So you think that something serious is going to happen, and the last line is that Malti was angry because she was called Mataji.
Mataji. Right. Nobody in India wants to be called
Yeah, so
Mataji.
they think and that person was an oldie. He himself was an oldie, and he was calling her Mataji. So
Yeah.
that was there. मतलब उनके मन को कचोटता रहा. So
Yeah. Ishika, let me come back to you. Since when did you actually start writing? We all know that you started at the age of 7. Was it actually 7 or a little earlier, a little later? Like first, I think you wrote your first poem in Cambridge at the age of 7?
My first long story was in Cambridge at the age of
Wow.
7.
Okay.
Before that, I used to write short poems on animals, nature, leaves. They were just like scribbles from a young person, but there
Okay.
were poems.
And what inspired you to write further? Like now you are a full-fledged author, you have co-authored a book. So what interesting turns in your life came that you kept writing?
I think after the age of 7, I used to write for school, for essays. And my teachers always used to motivate me, saying, I write well, I should write more. So that encouraged me and inspired me to keep writing. And coming to Drabbles, this I started writing in the year 2020. As my mother said, this was the time of the COVID pandemic, and I was in the 10th grade at that time. My boards, there was lots of uncertainty whether they were going to happen or not. So once they were finally cancelled, as a family bonding experience, I started writing drabbles with my mother. And then we roped in my grandfather, and since then I've been writing both drabbles, long stories.
Lovely. So it has been a bonding journey also, what I gather from you. A very connecting question to this is that, did this help you in your student life, your writing, or now that you are in Ashoka University? Has your writing helped you define your personality, your character? Is there a different Ishika which we see in a writer and a different Ishika in Ashoka or your school life?
As a student, drabble writing has obviously been very helpful because you have to pen down in just 100 words. So while taking notes or anything like that, there's a precision you have. So that has helped me over there. And in general writing, you are free to express yourself. You're free to say whatever you want. It's a form of catharsis. So that obviously shapes your personality and helps you express yourself, connect with others.
So is that your soul food?
Yes.
Yes, because I did gather from you when you are talking, you are quite passionate about your writing. So this is what still my question stands. Is it helping you in your personality, in your college life? Or are you thinking of authoring a separate book in future?
Well, we don't know what the future holds, but I would love to author.
Okay, that's lovely. Ruchi, I would like to ask you to read one more of your drabbles, and then I will ask you a very concrete question which I'll relate it to. One of your favorites, because mine are chapter 22 was my favorite. I would love to hear your favorite.
Well, my favorite is the first drabble which I penned down because it is very dear to me because it took me a long time to pen this. And this was the first drabble which I had, through which I had the feeling of Eureka, I can do it. So this is titled Call of the Wild. With bated breath, Naivasha waited quietly, watching the migration of wildebeests through the ravines of Masai Mara. Millions of these animals crossing the Grometi, a fascinating sight she had never before seen. A thump and a thud, a thump and a loud thud. Many crossed over, escaping the eye of the wicked and cunning crocodile. But wait, what was that? The river turned blood red. A calf caught by the crocodile, while the mother wildebeest watched in distress across the river. Naivasha heard the voice of God. Lo and behold, she jumped into the river, only to be united with the voice she had heard. This is actually my own experience. I had gone to Kenya, Masai Mara, and then we were watching the migration of wildebeests, and it was a very emotional moment, and the National Geographic vans they were covering, and suddenly we saw a crocodile, the wildebeest crossing, and the crocodile coming from the other end, and we were all like wanting to protect the wildebeest, har jao, side pe ho jao, be on the side, that kind of emotion. So Naivasha is me, though I didn't jump into the river, but then that kind of a feeling was there, that emotion was there. And
okay.
Then, and then the whole story has been incorporated. It could be a long story. In fact, I had written a longer story, but then I had to cut. And then when you read it finally, then some portion, the beginning is there, then the middle, the meaty part, and then it has come out in the form of a drabble too. And if one is free to write a longer story, can encapsulate
exactly.
much more.
I was coming to this only, and that is what I wanted to ask. Like you went to Masai Mara and you experienced a proper episode of this happening, and converting it to a drabble, like in 100 words you read it out, more than challenging. Of course, it's very challenging because I know I've been writing. So, how difficult is it actually? How much editing goes into? Because that episode must have taken 2 to 4 hours, and you are putting it in 100 words. Can you please elaborate on that?
Definitely, it's a challenge. And then I would say that, see, it enhances your vocabulary too, drabble writing, and the proper use of adverbs, then adjectives, so that it helps you in that. So a longer sentence is shortened to is made shorter by a proper use of vocabulary, and the whole experience overall, it has come, the gist, whatever main things I wanted to convey, they have come out. What happens in a longer story, I would have given a background description. I would have described the whole scene, the missile bandai and all. But that doesn't find place in a drabble. So those things we have to, shorten. I mean, we have to edit that. We can't
Right.
have that.
Being a bestseller, getting a good response from the readers, who would you attribute this to?
Yeah, so it is
And
basically...
this question, I think it goes to you both, because your book is a national bestseller.
You see, today's generation, I think the habit of reading a book is dying. Children are more with the video games.
Online reading.
Online
And social
Kindle
media has
also,
come a lot.
Social media. So
Yeah.
that distraction is there. And the moment they see a book, a thick book, then they get intimidated. So our book is a very small book, like it's of 100. We didn't even keep it 100 because our book is dedicated to Ruskin Bond, so our favorite author. So it is 86 stories in English and 87 stories in Hindi, as Venu has given the reason to.
Yeah, the reason is that he was 86 when the book published, and 87 in Hindi when it was translated to Hindi.
So we added one more drabble in Hindi, and that drabble was written in Hindi only. Translating also was a big job.
Yes.
So a translation is not at all easy. So
Because you
since-
cannot lose the soul
You
of
cannot,
the story or the drabble, one chapter.
Exactly.
You cannot lose the soul while translating. So how difficult was that also?
No, it was-
And was Mr. Ruskin Bond happy with the Hindi version also? Well, I'm sure you must have taken the book to him.
Yeah, he has been shown that book. And then the good thing is that since my mother tongue is Hindi, so I'm fortunate that I could also contribute to the translation, though the translator is Dr. Uma Pathakji. In fact, she has been my teacher. I was studying in Delhi University. She was a senior. She was teaching Hindi, though I didn't have Hindi, the subject, but I know her. So, but still, as an author, what you want to convey, that has to come out. And since my mother tongue is Hindi, and we were both able to do together. Yeah.
Like Ishika started at the age of 7, I'm so sorry I forgot to ask your journey. When did you start writing? And what turned you into writing drabbles?
Drabbles. See, I have also been writing since my childhood, and my articles, my poems have got published at that time. When I was growing up, there was a children's magazine called Target. So yeah, so in Target I used to send, and writing for the school magazine, but again never with the intent of publishing. So all my works are there now. In fact, I was going through Ishika's poems. Suddenly I found them, on bits of papers she had written. So that's a treasure, and yeah.
Ishika, let me come back to you. I'd love you to read one of your favorites. Of course, it was chapter 8 by my favorite, but do you have any other favorite? And if you can read it out.
So this one is called Necklace or Noose. It was the most alluring heirloom. Intricate carvings of phrases from the Bible ornamented the pendant. Today, this precious antique was finally mine. Alone in the Hertfordshire hills, I set out on my solitary hike. The necklace adorning my neck grew tighter with every breath. Soon it was choking me. Eerie sounds echoed through the hills. The cawing of ravens rang over my shrieks. No matter how hard I tried, it won't come off. An enormous banyan tree loomed in the distance. Hundreds of bodies hung from the branches of the tree, each dangling with a necklace similar to mine.
Ishika, I want to ask you, what is the difference of between your Drabbles from your mother and your grandfather?
So our stories are like a representative of the generation we belong to.
Oh, lovely.
I write mostly imaginative fiction, mystery, thrillers. My mother's are more realistic, heart-touching, while my grandfather's are anecdotes from his corporate life with a twist or humor in the end.
So, Ruchi, I have been prompted that we are left with 5 minutes. If anything you would love to add, because we need to open the session for the audience.
See, brevity and precision are two of the most important part of life too. So we find that many of the words which we speak in our daily life, they are quite redundant. So trying to convey things, we have to convey much more using less words. So that happens in our daily lives also, it is true. So, and I feel that writing a drabble now, I am better equipped to write a longer book. Because
it's a very common saying, less said the more.
Yeah, true.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
And then brevity is also the spice of wit.
right.
Yeah.
I would just like to add, I love the yellow color and the 3 generations depicting, because this has been co-authored by not 3 people, but 3 generations, the grandfather, the mother, and the daughter. And even in the illustration, it is very important to see that this book is very well illustrated on the book cover. So it's, I loved reading it, and I would request you all to read the Hindi or the English version, whichever you like. We will, the Hindi version is there, is Drabbles. नाम भी वही है, Drabbles. हमारी दुनिया Drabbles की 3 पीढ़ियों द्वारा. And in English, it is Our World, a Symphony of Drabbles by 3 generations. It was lovely talking to Ishika and Ruchi. We would love to open the session to all in case you want to ask anything. Ruchi, say, yeah, please. You can please pass the mic.
Warm greetings to the dignitaries on the dais. So my question is, ma'am, that basically literature and writing is basically considered as the spontaneous outflow of emotions. And writing within 100 words, it is considered a bit of restriction maybe to your imagination. So if someone wants to venture in this arena of writing drabbles, so what are the things one should keep in mind?
Okay, that's a lovely question, because if anybody else wants to go towards writing drabbles, you are the best person to answer for that.
No, you're very right in saying that it is, one has to give a free flow to one's imagination. So when Ishika was 12, so she started off with, we were only encouraging her to give a free flow to her imagination, not to curb her writing. So in fact, at the age of 12, so we never told her to write a drabble. So we took one of her stories and we asked her to edit it. But then editing is also a skill. At a particular age, after she became 15, fine, she was used to that writing, how to write story. And then editing is also a very, very important part of writing any book, of any creative writing. So that is also essential. And once she had mastered writing, then this drabble was, it was quite easy for her. And then you are taught pressy writing in schools too. So
I gather pressy writing helps us a lot from class 11th or 12th, or maybe I think it was in 9th.
Younger classes, junior classes. But then here it has to be a proper narrative. It cannot be plotless. Like in pressy, anything can be given, you know. So here it has to be a proper story, a proper beginning.
Definitely
not
meaningful. Plotless. I would love to ask, because I'm sure if she has asked, because I also have been an author. किताब तो लिख दी लंबी, उसको एडिट करने में बहुत समय लगा. I think I took around 8 months time to ये हटाओ, ये ऐड करो. In a drabble, how this difficult word is just coming back to my mind. How difficult was, because 100 words you had to complete a drabble. And editing is a very, very strong point in your book. How could you do it, especially Ishika? I think Ishika was, for you it was easier.
Yeah,
Because
it was
you were
much-
just out
yeah.
of school and in college. For you, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, it was difficult. That's what I said. My first drabble took me around 2-3 days, and for her it took just maybe half a day to write her first drabble. So that contrast was there. Yeah, it is difficult, but then as I said, you gain also while writing a drabble. You come across a vocabulary, you create your own vocabulary, you learn how to make proper use of adjectives, adverbs, sentence formation. It helps you quite a lot. And not being repetitive too.
Right. Anyone else has any questions? Then we can ask Ishika and Ruchi to read one more, and then we can end the session. Yeah, so Ishika, can you go ahead with reading one of your drabbles, and then Ruchi?
So this one is called Real versus Real. Following the stream of black smoke, we departed from the road. Julia and I soon found ourselves surrounded by a dense forest. The cloud of impenetrable murky smoke led us to a decrepit house. The steady flame wasn't being tended to at all. 2 burnt skeletal bodies lay outside. We had to act. Fast, frantically, we ran in search of aid. The sound of a running river guided us to a throng of people. How could they be so oblivious to the raging fire so near them? Angered, we confronted them. We were left red-faced. It was a movie shoot.
Very nice, Ishika.
Now, this is again another drabble, one of my favorites, because I am a daughter. My parents have 2 daughters, so they express about my own self. Daughters as daughters, and please see the title, Daughters as Daughters. Undaunted, she drove all the way to the Godavari river bath. In their patriarchal setup, which predominantly eulogized on the birth of a son, here was a daughter taking charge. Transcending the taboos imposed by society, she carried the earthen pot of her father's ashes for immersion. Keeping herself afloat on the wobbly coracle, she held on to the pot. The boat paused in the middle of the river. With a heavy heart, she let it go. Life comes full circle. She moved ahead, a snail on the shore, back bearing a tough exterior. She was down, but not out.
Oh, that's a brilliant, I don't know how I missed it. And yes, very important.
In our society, especially where the son is
Son
given
is
some-
absolutely.
So a daughter is a daughter in her own right. I have not titled this a daughter is more than a son, or daughters and
A daughter is a daughter.
a daughter is a daughter in her own right. She has her own identity. She has her own rights.
What a brilliant topic to end. It's very close to my heart. I will definitely not go there, but a brilliant way to end this session. Thank you so much, Ruchi and Ishika. I hope that you loved Dehradun, and I hope you'll keep coming back with more books. And Ishika, we'd love to see you as an independent author now. So, and that will bring you to value your words again. So thank you so much, and we end the session. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being with us.
A big round of applause to the panelists. I'm really grateful to the eminent writers as well as